Hello again. This is the fourth and final part of the Elven Library Ruins. In this video I put a lot of things onto the diorama that I didn't show how I'd made them. So if you'd like to know how I made some of the pieces that I've placed onto it, just leave a message in the comments section and I'd be happy to let you know or give you a tutorial or make a tutorial on how I made it. So I hope you enjoy the video. I'm just going to put a nail into the base of my diorama so I can use it to earth my static grass applicator, and then I'm going to apply glue anywhere I want to put the grass down and just put it sort of in a natural pattern. Just sort of dab it here and there and anywhere you want to put little bits of grass. Try and keep it natural looking, I suppose. And then I just use the clip and earth my applicator and then get it as low as I possibly can. I couldn't get it quite as low as I should have because of the camera angle, so you could see it, but you can still see it standing up and it's fairly close. They're amazing little things, these applicators. I love static grass. I love applying it more too now that I stopped earthing myself with the applicator. It's a beautiful end product. I found a nice and suitable little twig outside for my tree, and this Wicker Wreath, I noticed how flexible and strong this is. I've used it for other projects but nothing like a tree, and I thought I would use it, so I went ahead and steamed the pieces of wicker, and they came out really nice and straight. They didn't lose any of their strength or flexibility, and they turned out to be really good branches. I know that will last for a very, very long time. Before I go doing too much work on the tree, I just wanted to make sure that it's going to sit all right on the diorama and not take up too much space, or the height is not too much with it or too little with it. And I used this little, it's not a drill, but it's a drill bit that I used with tape to make some little holes just so I could put the wicker into it and it would glue easier than sitting there trying to hold it for an hour. And just super glued them in. It took a little bit of work, but it was worth it because it wasn't a bad job. This little hand drill that I made is a great tool. I just cut the end of each branch at an angle so it would just sit a little easier into the angle of the branch that I wanted it to be at, and propped them up with a skewer to dry, save me holding it. It's got a nice feel to it, a nice shape to it now. And I made this netting, I suppose you'd call it, out of scourers. I just found if you peel these into sheets, they get finer and finer and finer. You could do them down to almost nothing. And then you can just pull them apart and make a really, really fine netting out of them. I just need the netting to put across the branches to bridge the gaps so I can put my clump foliage down. And you pull it apart, it can go across quite a big distance, and it's quite strong, this, and once I put a coat of brown paint on it, it's even stronger again and it blends in more with the tree. You can see I've just sort of placed the netting where I want to balance out to have the clump foliage, and I just spray it with the spray adhesive and then just start lightly applying it. But I've got to make the clump foliage first, I suppose. When I make mine, I just use a sponge that you'd use to wash a car with, that's nice and light and porous, and I use a wire brush and I just rip it to bits. And then once it's nice and fine, I just add in the colours that I want, mostly greens and yellows, some brown, just to balance it out so it's not too unnatural looking. And just make the paint a little runny with some water and mix it through well so it's just the right consistency, not too heavy, not too light. And then you just, I find squishing it with my hand, it gets it right through the foam. That comes out quite good this way, and then give it a nice dry and keep moving it around as it dries. I've only put a light layer of clump foliage on because I'm going to add some leaves that I made from a paper tablecloth, because I don't want too much weight on the tree. I find it just adds up over time if you keep adding the clump foliage, especially a tree this size. These little leaves that I stamped out took a long time, but they were really worth the effort. They're beautiful and realistic and light, and they just, yeah, tick a lot of boxes I found with these little leaves. I really love this tablecloth paper. There's a slight sheen to it and it reflects light, so you don't need to add an extra layer of foliage to give highlights to your actual tree tops. I think it comes off great. I put a pin in the tree stump just to stabilise it when I glue it down. And I just want to do a test check to see how well it fits in. I'll have to pull it back out because I am struggling with placing things on this diorama as it is at this point. But it looks nice, I like it. It's quite realistic. I'm just going to make some little books out of the XPS foam. I was going to make 50,000 as I'd mentioned in another video, but I decided to divide that by 10,000 and came up with 6, which I thought was a good number. It works. I'm no good with maths, so that's why I never measure anything. But these turned out good. I just measured them by eye, by just cutting them into slices and sanding them. And then I just scored in the lines that I wanted to do to make the little pages. It's really basic stuff. I think this pencil's probably a little bit too sharp for this job. It's cutting it more than it is scoring it, but it still worked out all right. It's hard to get those tiny little pages. And I just drew some random, somewhat symmetrical patterns into them, so it just looked like some sort of elven gibberish. They're so small, no one would ever see them really anyway. And then I put some brown ink on, as I always do. Just let it soak right in. And then I just watered down some off-white and got it the right consistency so I could do every single turn in one swipe. And then some burnt sienna and the bookish green and gold, just to stay in coordination with colours that I'd previously used on the library bookshelves. Again, I just use a toothpick to recreate the lines that I've accidentally filled in, because it's so small it's hard to avoid paint falling into the small indentations that you make and all the little lines. I just need to do a second coat of the white because it's soaked in so much. And also I just did one coat of the burnt sienna and let the brown ink beneath do the heavy lifting of light and shadow, and it works well. I'm just going to use a toothpick, both ends, to do different patterns. Like you just press into it and you'll get a circular pattern or a moon kind of shape. Just the right amount of pressure will do the application really, really well, and it's really fine work that you couldn't do with a paintbrush. That's created a really perfect fine circle. That looks really good. Just using the tip of the toothpick, you can make small impressions in by just piercing it and making even smaller circles again. Now it's time for the final assembly and the removal of my hair that's been all over it. The little bones are made from polymer clay. There's nothing anatomically correct about these. I just made random bones and threw them down pretty much. And then the little wooden buckle that I previously made. Another orc skull with a spear sticking out of its eye socket, and I just made it go through the other side so I could push it into the wall and not have to worry about holding it there to glue it down. I made small tufts of grass from gluing clumps of paintbrush bristles together and then just teasing them into little tufts, and then I just made a deep hole with the end of a paintbrush, and then I just inserted them. They're so tightly fitting, you don't even need to glue these. They look really good, I like them a lot. Just some lumps of rock debris and brick from XPS foam, all painted up the same way the original brickwork was done in the building. I'll glue these down later. And a little bush with little sparkly looking kind of flowers. It's a bit girly, but it needed a break in the greens, so I decided to add something a little bit different. A banner that was made from polymer clay, and I super glued a tack on the back so I could easily glue it down. I did put glue on this before I put it onto the wall, and after seeing this within a few minutes I realised it was off centre. Luckily I looked at it and I did go back and fix it and put it in place. More of the rocky debris. A little polymer clay scroll. Not a scroll of resurrection by the look of it. It's just an L-shaped bush that I made to snugly fit onto this corner. And the little books. I'm now glad I didn't make 50,000 of these. I think 6 is just enough. I made quite a few pieces of polymer clay paper and little scrolls to scatter around the diorama. I also found when making these little scrolls, when you bake them in the oven and someone asks you what you're cooking, and then you pull these out and the sheer look of disappointment on their face in itself is enough to make you just want to bake them. It's a really rewarding thing. Another little bush. I think I'm just kind of filling voids and balancing colour at this point. That works nicely, and I want it to look somewhat overgrown. I have a trio of foliage there. Little broken pieces of tile. I did put that little piece of tile back over the top of that somewhat as well. And another bush. I don't remember making that many bushes. And now that everything else is in place, it's finally time to glue down the tree. It's somewhat nerve-wracking doing this. I don't know why. But I got there with it in the end. It seemed a little off balance. It was on the mat incorrectly, but that's it. The final piece. Aside from this one, which I forgot, I've just now remembered. It was just a bit of the wreath that was still twisted. I didn't straighten it and I liked the shape of it. So I just made it look like a twisted branch reaching around from the outside of the building. And that's it for the Elven, Dwarven, Gnomish Undead Library. I'm really sorry for my terrible filming with this. I'm really poor with it, and I'm just using a phone, and I really struggled to try and get in and round and manoeuvre to get shots of any of this because it's just so small and there's so much in there. It's really complicated to film it, but I hope you get to see enough of what I've created. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.